all you want. You can scream even if you'd like. If you'd like, I'll help. Somebody help!
There's a particular kind of fear that only exists when you don't know if something is staged. Not the kind that comes from monsters, or jump scares, or gore, but the kind that creeps in when you realize the people on screen might actually mean what they're doing. Because once that line disappears, nothing feels safe anymore. This is the story of a home video that went too far. A prank that crossed a line so completely, no one involved ever fully escaped it. And a question that still doesn't have an answer. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, the idea of real horror had changed. Audiences were no longer impressed by polished effects or obvious actors. What scared people now was authenticity. Shaky cameras, awkward silences, conversations that felt unscripted. Found footage didn't just feel scary, it felt believable, and belief is dangerous. All it took was a consumer camcorder, a dark location, and the suggestion that what you were watching might not be fake at all. For a group of young adults growing up in Flint, Michigan, this felt like an opportunity. Flint was a city in decline, factories closing, jobs disappearing, futures shrinking. To them, filmmaking didn't feel like a hobby, it felt like an escape. They filmed constantly. Short horror scenes, crude pranks, experiments meant to shock their friends. The goal wasn't violence. It wasn't even fear. It was reaction, attention, proof that they could make something people couldn't ignore. In early 2002, a 19-year-old woman named Danielle Taylor entered this orbit. She wasn't an outsider. She wasn't a stranger. She had been to the house before, hung out, watched movies, laughed at jokes. Nothing about the group seemed threatening. They were immature, maybe reckless, but familiar. That sense of familiarity is important, because it's the reason she didn't leave. It's the reason she didn't suspect anything when the camera came out. And it's the reason what happened next worked at all. One night in early March, the tone shifted without warning. What began as another casual hangout slowly became something else. Danielle was restrained. Her hands were cuffed, eyes were covered, and her movement was taken from her. The camera stayed on. At first, the footage feels awkward rather than terrifying. Danielle looks annoyed, confused, trying to read the situation. Someone off camera asks her a strange question, something philosophical.
Okay, I have a question for you. You just said hi. But if you had one thing to say, if this was your last day on Earth, what would it be?
Something about final words. It sounds like a joke, until it isn't. Hands enter the frame. Her posture stiffens. She doesn't scream immediately because she doesn't understand yet. Fear doesn't always arrive all at once. Sometimes it creeps in slowly as your brain struggles to catch up with reality. By the time it does, the moment to resist has already passed. The next scene takes place inside a moving car. Night vision footage washes everything in green. Danielle sits in the back seat, blindfolded, unnaturally still. The joking tone from earlier is gone. No laughter, no banter. A knife appears. It presses against her throat. The questions that follow are not the kind people ask during a prank. They're not exaggerated or theatrical. They're quiet, personal, questions about regret, about family, about whether she lived a good life. Danielle answers them.
You have 15 seconds to say whatever you want to say.
Mom, everybody, I love you. I'm sorry for everything.
She tells her mother she loves her, and in that moment, it no longer matters whether this was supposed to be fake, because she believes it. No one tells her to calm down. No one says it's staged. The silence does more damage than any threat could. Eventually, the car stops. The group exits into the woods, and the camera follows. The forest is dark, uneven, quiet in a way that feels intentional. Danielle is carried rather than walking. Her body doesn't resist much now, not because she's cooperating, but because fear has narrowed her focus to survival. And then, the ground changes.
Danielle? Danielle, I want to ask you something.
There's a hole. A shallow grave that looks like it was dug ahead of time. That detail matters. They explain what's going to happen, calmly, methodically, as if describing a process they've already accepted.
How you doing? I take it it's been better, huh? You can move all you want. You can scream even if you'd like. If you'd like, I'll help. Somebody help!
The blindfold is removed, and Danielle doesn't scream. She goes quiet. A knife is raised. The motion is made. Her body collapses, and then everything breaks. Laughter erupts, while tension dissolves. The fear vanishes from everyone except her.
We only have like 38 seconds left. Here, John, you take the camera.
Let's get the cast.
Number 1.
Thank you, I'll be here all weekend.
Christina's the driver. Jimmy,
Phil.
the victim.
Victim?
I can't remember the name. Danielle.
Anyway.
They congratulate her performance, introduce themselves to the camera, smile, bow, explain their roles. It was a prank, a movie, a joke. At least that's how they framed it. Danielle doesn't celebrate, because for her, the fear didn't end when the knife stopped moving. It stayed. Days later, she returned to the house under the pretense of watching the footage. Everyone gathered, the tape played, and the room felt normal again. When no one was paying attention, she took it, she replaced it, and left. And she went to the police. What followed was confusion. Arrests came quickly. Kidnapping charges, assault charges, headlines that struggled to explain what had happened. The group insisted it was staged, that this was how their pranks worked, that Danielle never explicitly told them to stop, that she played along. Prosecutors argued something very different. That consent doesn't come from silence. That fear doesn't always look like screaming. That freezing isn't the same as agreeing. The footage was disturbing, but it wasn't definitive, and that's what made the case so unsettling. In the end, the sentences were lighter than many expected. Probation, suspended jail time, fines. Everyone walked free. For a while, it seemed like the story had reached its conclusion. But consequences don't always arrive in courtrooms. Over the next decade, 3 of the men involved died, young, sudden, and all before their lives ever fully stabilized. Online, speculation filled the gaps. Drugs, mental health struggles, or illness. Some people whispered about curses, about karma, and about punishment catching up. But nothing concrete ever tied their deaths back to the tape. Just a lingering sense of unease. Years later, someone claiming to know the group personally spoke out. They described the men as pranksters, not predators. Said similar stunts had happened before. Claimed Danielle misunderstood what was happening, or exaggerated it afterward. They insisted the situation spiraled beyond anyone's control, and once again, the truth blurred. Because the footage exists, but footage doesn't show intent. It doesn't show what someone believed in, the moment they thought their life was ending. Only one person truly knows that, and she's never changed her story. This isn't just a lost media mystery. It's something more uncomfortable. A reminder that horror doesn't need monsters, just people who don't know when to stop. And a question that still hangs in the air. When the camera is rolling, how do you prove what was real?